Hi, my name is Omar Hernández, and in this tutorial I'm gonna create an explosion out of keyframes instead of a simulation. This is our scene. We have this object. It's already broken into pieces. We take a look at the wireframe. What we're gonna do is move this so it looks like an explosion. So for this we're gonna use a couple of scripts. This is channel box operations or CBOps. You can find this script in this link. And the other one is SMO random select. You can find this script in this link. First, we're gonna select our objects, all of our objects, go to frame 0 and set a keyframe. We're gonna press S on the keyboard. So now we have our keyframes. We're gonna move to frame 10, set a new keyframe. We're gonna deselect the objects and on the edge, just for reference. Now that we have this object selected, we want them to move up in Y, but randomly. For this we're gonna use CBOps. First we're gonna set a minimum of, let's say, 3 and a maximum of 40. We're gonna click on translate Y on the channel box and click randomize on our script. And there we go. Now we have random values on translate Y for our objects. Let's set a keyframe. So now we have this movement, and we need these objects to rotate. So again, we go to CBOps. We're gonna set a minimum of, let's say, -60 and a maximum of 60. We're gonna click and drag rotate to select rotate X, Y, and Z, and we're gonna click randomize on our script. There we go. We have random rotation and they move up. Now let's say that we want the objects in the middle to be way up than the rest of the objects, and we want to move the rest of the objects accordingly. So for this we're gonna set the auto keyframe toggle on. We have to be very careful with this button, and then let's do this. We're gonna select only objects in the middle like this, and we're gonna move them up. But first we have to double click on our move tool, so we have all the options, and we're gonna select soft select. Instead of volume or surface, we're gonna select object. What this is doing is not deforming the objects, but just changing the values in translate and rotate as we move them up. Or if we rotate this, it's going to rotate the objects. So the rest of the objects are going to follow. Once we stop moving them, auto keyframe is going to set a keyframe on all the objects that are changing the translate values. So now we have this, and say we want a little more of movement, but not for every object. We're gonna select some objects here, but we don't want every object to be moving all the other objects. We want just part of them. This is where we're gonna use SMO random select. Instead of having all the objects moving, I want just half of them to be moved. So we're gonna set here 0.5, that's 50%, click OK, and then I'm just gonna have half the objects I have selected now selected. So again, let's press B on our keyboard to have sub-selected on. Let's move this a little bit to the side and up. We're gonna select some objects here. Again, just half of them, probably half of them, and then moving to the side and a little bit up. We don't have to set a keyframe because we have auto keyframe already on for these objects. And now we have this little explosion for our objects. Let's say we want these objects to keep moving after the explosion, so we have this kind of bullet time effect. So let's go to frame 75, move him a little bit up, but I want to move all the objects up by 5 units exactly. So with all the objects selected, I'm gonna go to translate Y, click on the numerical value, and here I'm gonna type plus equal 5. This is gonna add 5 units to all the translate Y values in this particular frame. Since we already have auto keyframe on, this is gonna set a keyframe for all the objects in this frame. So now we have a fast movement and then a slow movement. We're gonna add some random rotation values for rotate X, Y, and Z. Let's put probably -15 and 15. Click randomize. Let's undo that. We have absolute mode. Let's turn this off. So we're gonna have -15, 15 random value on top of this already set values. So click on randomize. So we have a little rotation, and we have the explosion, a little movement with a little rotation. So that's it. Now we have a quick explosion. We can change the keyframes if we want. It's gonna look good in a fast cut for a motion graphics project or whatever we need. It takes less time than the actual simulation and it's more stylized. Thanks.